Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankaracharya Madhyamām Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. We were seeing that the disciple, having realized the truth, is expressing that to the teacher, or one can say that the disciple is contemplating on one's own or reveling in that state on one's own. So though this topic has been classified in this commentary of Puja Gurudev as the practice of knowledge, it is the practice of knowledge for us. For the disciple, it is the anubhav, it is the experience already. So we had stopped at 497, where it was said, Mai akhanda sukham bodhau bahudha vishwa vichayaha utpadyante viliyante maya maruta vibhrama. So in me, the ocean of unbroken bliss, endless waves of the universe are created and destroyed by the storms of Maya. Now, continuing that further, 498. Sthuladibhava mai kalpita bhramat aropitanuspuranena lokaihi kale yatha kalpakavatsarayana. ऋत्वादयो निष्कल निर्विकल्पे स्थूलादिभावः, meaning sthula sharir, sukshma sharir, karan sharir, these three, sthuladibhava mai kalpita bhramat, are imagined in me because of delusion. Aropita anusfuranena lokaihi, people superimpose this on me. Aropitaha anusfuranena lokaihi. How? Example given here is kale yatha. Time is unbroken, it is eternal. In the sense, from the beginning of the creation to the end of creation, it is one unbroken time actually. Functional convenience we split. So we make this indivisible time into all this, the kalpaka, vatsara, ayana. So kalpa is one kalpa, that's 4 Mahayugas. Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar Kalyug. Then Vatsara, Samvatsara, which is the year. Then Ayana, in that Dakshinayan and Uttarayan, 6 months of northern solstice and southern solstice. Then Ritu, 6 seasons. Within that, Dakshinayan and Uttarayan, further, division of the seasons. Ritvadayo, Nirvikalpa, Nishkala Nirvikalpe. In that which is partless, we have made these parts, we have made these divisions. Just like in the absolute truth, which is infinite, divisions are made: gross body, subtle body, causal body. That is for the individual. And then all this together, samashti, sthula sharira, sukshma sharir, karana sharir. So he says these are aropitaha. Sthuladibhava mai kalpita bhramat. By delusion, this is imagined. People are imagining. See, one is the functional aspect. So the example is very nice here because the time has two aspects. So one is called the functional aspect of time, which is the clock, the division, clockwise division what we have, which is what is said here. From Kalpa onwards to every minute and second is a division which is clockwise just for a functional convenience. And the other is the psychological time division, which is where we see that when we are absorbed, time passes very quickly. When we are not absorbed, then time doesn't seem to pass. That is the psychological aspect of time. But both these are imaginations in the divisionless concept of time. The concept of time rises because of our buddhi. And when we live in the society together, then this understanding has to be there of time. So for a functional convenience, we give time to somebody. I will meet you at such and such time, or this work will take this many days to complete. So for that functional transactional value, the time has got divided now. One may say, no, but sunrise, sunset happens, the seasons are there, and then, the earth's rotation, etc. is happening. That's why it is functionally, it is there as our convenience to transact. But from the beginning of the creation to the end, even that beginning and end is a part of time actually, because Vedanta very clearly says beginningless, creation is beginningless. Why? Because it's an imagination of avidya, and that doesn't have time. Because time comes when mind comes into play. If the mind is asleep, there is no time. In deep sleep, there is no time. In the dream state, the time is completely different from the waking state time. So it's a projection of the mind. Now, mind is a product of what? Is a product of this causal body. So ignorance and vasanas, they are the cause for subtle body, and a part of the the subtle body, when it is working, then time is experienced by us. So time itself is a imagination. If subtle body, causal body, etc. itself is not there, how is time there? In that pure consciousness, there is nothing. So beginning and end, etc. come into play only when our mind comes into play, and that mind we have considered as real. Otherwise, it is just time is partless, like the nishkala nirvikalpe. Time is partless and the absolute reality is nirvikalpa, beyond thought. So just like the absolute reality is beyond thought and it can't be divided into these three, gross body, subtle body, causal body. How? Just like this time. Time is one complete, what can we say? It's not a flow. Because again, we have created it, past, present, future, in time. It just is. Time exists, that's all. For whom? When the mind is there, for the jiva. And the jiva has created division functionally and psychologically. Same way, this one pure consciousness alone exists. And that one pure consciousness now appears to have become many in form of so many species and this whole creation and all that. But he says all this is kalpita brahmat. It is by delusion, it is superimposed. Just like the snake is seen because of delusion. It is not really existing. So when that snake is seen by delusion, then the only solution is get the right knowledge. And when the right knowledge of the rope arises, then one says, "Arey, that there was no snake, I was seeing it because of my delusion. It was never there actually." So in that same way here it is. When he says Thula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira, they are superimpositions. He is negating Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira, which means Jiva Bhav is negated, which means Sanchita Karma, Agami Karma, Prarabdha Karma also gone. We had seen that portion earlier in this Vivek Chudamani. Prarabdha for a saint, when we saw, at a lower level we say yes, Prarabdha exists for a saint and whatever is the Prarabdha Karma which is not exhausted, that the body has to exhaust. But that is an explanation for us. When we are identified with our body, we see the Mahatma's body, so we say, okay, Prarabdha exists. But from their standpoint, what Prarabdha? Gross body, subtle body, causal body only is gone. One has experienced the infinite absolute in which all the universes rise like a storm of Maya. Then for that Mahatma, where is the question of Prarabdha? There is no Prarabdha. So this shloka also is like that. Denying the gross body, subtle body, causal body, because they are mere superimpositions. You see, that challenge in us for us is that what is a superimposition is being considered very real to us, and now to drop the reality, false reality we have given to a superimposition and to see it as a superimposition is becoming a big problem. Like to see the snake as not being there and rope alone being there is becoming a big issue. Because the snake is considered so real and the rope has become unreal. That is called delusion. No? The truth becomes the untruth becomes the truth. Becomes means appears. So when the illusion appears very real to us and we are upon that very attached to that, because it is real, we are very attached to that. Now to give that up and contemplate on that which is actually real today has become very difficult. Otherwise it should be very simple. No? Delusion should be, one should be able to give up delusion easily because it's a superimposition, it's false. Any superimposition is false, substratum alone is real. But if that superimposition is considered real, now substratum has become falsified. That is what happens or not. Where is God? Which God? What consciousness? Gone. Now that is imaginary concept. And this which is actually imaginary is appearing very real to me. And now I'm attached to this. So now to drop this identification and realize that consciousness, now that is becoming more difficult. The effort that this student has put and he has realized this is all not even there. Sthuladi bhava mai kalpita brahmat. And it is whose delusion? Not somebody else's delusion. It is my own delusion. Which is why it can be dropped. Sthuladi bhavaha. So this shloka also is to tell us this, that three bodies don't exist really. See, whenever that comes, our mind automatically asks that question. It is okay. It's a very high philosophy. It is not at this moment. This is what I am. Not ready to negate oneself. Not ready to negate that this body is not substantial at all. Even from scientific angle, if you see, the body is nothing. It is made up of atoms. Atoms are 99.99999% empty. There is only empty space inside this atom. From science standpoint, what is atom, which is 99.9999 and 13 nines after that? If that atom is so empty with space, this 0.0000 up to 12 and 1, that is making this whole thing appear real. Can you imagine? And that is taking us for a royal ride. What? 0.00001% of matter. Rest of it is all empty space. And to negate that 0.00001 matter, we are finding it difficult. Look at our attachment. Attachment is not to 99.9999, which is empty space. Attachment is actually to 0.0001, which is matter. How, I mean, when one actually thinks about it, one feels dumb. What am I believing? 0.001%, that is appearing as real to me, and now I am so attached that without this I can't be happy, and now to negate this is so difficult. No, I am not the, I am not Brahman, I am still this body, and body is so important. The whole gross world only is Jada Vastu. So how to even negate? See, intellectually Vedanta is saying that, today science is also saying that this is full. What is the conclusion of that actually, if you think about it? It's same as Vedanta. No, it is an illusion. It is not real. What is real? When definition of science also matches with Vedanta finally. What is real? The ground seems to be real. Book is real. Body is real. But it is all made up of atoms which have whatever, proton, neutron, electron. And that is only 0.1%. Rest is all empty space. So now science also is saying that, we are pretty much nobody. We are zero. It's all play of this 0.00001% something. That's it. So intellectually, what Vedanta is saying or what science is saying, whichever one takes, it doesn't matter. Difference in Vedanta and science, at least in that aspect, is Vedanta says, but you are that you are that pure consciousness. You are not empty space, nor are you that matter. You are consciousness, which is by delusion appearing like this. You are not this. You are that pure self. Science has not yet come to that. They will come to that also. And the best part will be, even after they come to that, we will still believe I am the body. At the moment we take the escape of science to run away from spirituality. Now I am a scientific person. I am very scientific. I am rational. I am modern thinker and all. Okay, reject the Veda, reject the scripture, reject religion, reject all this. Come to, okay, hold on to science. What is science telling you? Science is telling you are zero. Only 0.00001% in you is some tangible matter. Rest of it is all empty space. Proof of that is this is empty space only. So even after science tells us, are we ready to accept that? No. So let the science even tell you, you are consciousness, you are not this. Nothing will change. Why? Because ultimately it is me who has to learn to drop my attachment. I am holding on to my attachment very strongly. The unreal matter I am holding on to so strongly because my senses make it appear real. A gross body, subtle body, causal body, all of them are unreal. But the senses make all of them appear real, and I am identified with the senses. So the sense of aham itself is illusory. Then this body and everything, how it will be real. But I am attached. That's why in ignorance only this whole thing lasts. In this whole world, so much sorrow, suffering is all because of ignorance. On any issue you can take, it will be ignorance. Coronavirus, people are suffering. Ignorance. Now we don't know what is the cure. Today Ram Janmabhoomi, the Ram Mandir Bhumi Pujan will happen. 500 years, you see. We have fought for this 500 years. And what all wrong notions these people have fed into our heads, and the fight has been going on and on and on. Ram is a fictional character. Now nobody called Ram existed. There was no temple there. Arey, what? And legal battles one has to fight for that. Ignorance only. Tulsidas ji said so clearly in the Tulsi Ramayana, Shivji is telling Parvati, Uma kahau mai anubhav apna, sat hari bhajan jagat sab sapna. Bhagwan is saying that Hari Bhajan only is real, rest is all sapna, it is all delusion only, a dream. It doesn't exist really. Same thing it is. Vedanta is also saying that it's all delusion. Gross body, subtle body, causal body is delusion. It's superimposition by deluded people. Which means all of us, we are superimposing. On what? On that infinite absolute bliss which is unbroken. There we have created one small little division saying I am this body, Jiva. Consciousness identifying with one BMI is this Jiva. Then the Jagat is separate, Ishvara is separate. Now this is considered real. Body is real, world is real. Now fight with the world goes on. So the foundation only is ignorance. So that's why he says, Aropita Anuspuranena Lokaihi. By people who are deluded, one goes on thinking this is real. And the best part is that delusion is so deep that it doesn't make us even question the reality. How many people question the reality? We don't question the reality of this. We have the guts to question the reality of God, but not the reality of who am I. How strange is that? I am real, but God is not real. I can question where is God, who is God, what is God. I don't think God exists. But do you exist? I exist. How sure is that? Full product of delusion. I am real, but God is not real. Wow. Hiranyakashipu was saying that only. At least they were better than you. Vishnu exists. He had enmity with Vishnu. And he told people, don't chant the name of Vishnu, chant my name. Hiranyaya Namah, Hiranyaya Namah. Here we think I am only existing. Vishnu doesn't exist only. So why chant his name? At least he knew Vishnu existed. Asura he was, but he was better than us in that sense. We don't accept the existence of Vishnu only. But our existence is real. Wave is real, ocean is not real. How stupid is that? But that's the mind now. How the mind is playing trick with us, you see. So when Bhranti, this is what Bhranti has no rational basis. A delusion is just a delusion, a superimposition. How will one logically see? Because if logic was applied, then the snake can't produce, rope can't produce the snake. There is no logic in this. It's illogical superimposition. And it is very amazing. It is an illogical superimposition, but we are still trapped in logic. We think I am very logical, I am a very rational, I am a very objective type of a person, and I don't accept anything at face value. I will need proofs. You have to prove everything to me. What? Delusion, No, there's no problem in using logic. We use logic for what? To understand it's a delusion, we use logic. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti is used for what? To understand this is a delusion. That's all. And to understand that this is an illogical impossibility. I say it's an illogical projection, it's an impossible thing. There is no reality to this. For that, logic has to be used. Our buddhi uses logic ulta. To deny the reality it is using, instead of denying the superimposition. To deny the substratum, logic is being used. Which is why it is called kutarka. False logic. It's not real logic. Because real logic will go into the cause. And when we go into the cause, one will say, Arey, this though is infinite cause. Infinity can't produce anything. So logically speaking, there cannot be a creation, including this BMI. Finished. 2 steps. If really one uses logic in 2 steps, one will understand this whole thing is an illusion. Big granthas are not required. But the problem is we are not ready for that logic. So then the Shastra has to tell us, okay, now do Karma Yoga, do Upasana, purify the mind, go to the teacher, study, reflect, all that has to be done. Why? Because Buddha is not clear. Otherwise, Mananam is Yukti Bhi Anuchintanam. Using logic, continuously think, and one will come to understand very clearly that this is a full product of delusion. No reality to this at all. Like not a single part of the dream is real. Nothing is real in that. Waker alone is real, that's all. So who is real here? Consciousness alone is real. Rest is all imaginary. And how does that imagination end? When we realize the substratum as consciousness. And that substratum will never be affected by the superimposition. Because it is not the consciousness which is appearing like that. It is the ignorance that is making consciousness appear like that. Consciousness is not projecting the world or producing the world. So that is what is the next shloka about the superimposition and the substratum and what is their connection. Aropitam na shrayadushakam bhavet kadapi mudhairati dosha dushitaihi nardri karotyushara bhumi bhagam marichikavari mahapravaha. Aropitam na ashraya dushakam bhavet. This is a very important line. What is superimposed can never affect the substratum. Ashraya dushakam aropitam na bhavet. Ashraya means the substratum. Aropita is superimposition. So this substratum will never be affected by what is superimposed. See, most of the time when we say superimposition, what we think as superimposition is always external. Like the example also which will be given here is a mirage example. Na ardri karoti ushara bhumi bhagam. The mirage cannot wet even a little bit of the ground of the desert. Marichika vari mahapravaha. It can be, you can see a huge flow of as though a river there because of the play of sunlight, as though actually some river is flowing there. Marichika vari mahapravaha. But it will not wet the sand or the desert ground because it's a superimposition. Mudhaihi ati dosha dushitaihi. Who is doing it? Is the deluded fool who is doing it. So now this example, whether it is rope and snake or this the mirage example of the desert, that is always from outside standpoint. You see, that somebody is not seeing the desert sand as desert sand. That person is seeing a mirage there because of the play of sunlight. So the person is outside seeing, person is separate, seeing a delusion outside, seeing an illusion outside actually. Delusion is inside, product of delusion is illusion outside. So moha is here. That's why that mudhaihi is used. Ati dushitaihi, impure mind which is having so much of delusion, that mind will see. So generally this is the example, this is the example one takes for superimposition and substratum as an external thing happening, where the individual is separate. But the better example will always be the dream example, because in that the dreamer only is appearing as, sorry, the waker is appearing as the dream creator as well as the dream world as well as the dream character in the dream world. This is one consciousness only, one waker. Out of delusion is appearing as all this. So that's always a better example. So now just like in this one, water cannot, the mirage water cannot affect the desert sand. In the same way, consciousness cannot be affected by BMI. It's all superimposition. The whole universe itself we saw is like waves rising and falling. That is a lower standpoint again to say, okay, it is still rising, no, but it is real. Higher standpoint says it doesn't rise, Baba. Where is mirage water rising from the sand? Where is actually the waker going through anything? Is a dream is an illusion only. So aropitam na ashraya dushakam bhavet. The superimposition will never affect the substratum. Our body cannot limit us, cannot define us. There is no birth for us, there is no change for us, there is no death for us as pure consciousness. The body may have birth and death, but that is a superimposition, and whatever is the destiny of the superimposition, it may have its own destiny. There is no, it doesn't affect the substratum at all. Now, when we say destiny, meaning it is the duration for which that will last and the experiences that it goes through is all in superimposition. Whether the river is flooded or the river is thin or the river is big or it is impure, that is all the delusory superimposition of the traveler who is seeing the mirage. The sand, nothing is happening there. It's just the sand, full stop. Consciousness alone exists. There is no gross body, subtle body, causal body that we saw. So there is no prarabdha, sanchita, agami, which we call as destiny. Prarabdha karma is called destiny. The destiny of the body is all from lower standpoint. Higher standpoint, which body, what destiny, what creation only. None of that exists. So samadhi avastha, when one has experienced the absolute truth, that is when one has understood all this, internalized all this. Otherwise, intellectually one understands to some extent, but one is still not able to apply. Now, body, because it is so real to me, next time anything happens to the body, any fear of death comes or any fear of a disease or any, physical harm or any such thing, it is the body. I am the consciousness which is not affected. At least that assertion must happen in our mind. A thought comes, thought of lust comes, thought of anger comes, thought of jealousy comes, thought of insecurity comes. It's just a thought. It comes, it just goes. Which I can practice everywhere, anywhere, anytime. If I have understood this very clearly, it's a superimposition. At least I can start applying that for the negative. But the thing is, you can't apply it for the negative because it has to be applied for the positive first. And that's why that equanimity between the pairs of opposites is important. At good times, if I'm able to practice this Sakshi Bhav, that this is a good thought, it's just a thought. It came and it stays, it goes. I am Sakshi. No, but can't we enjoy? Who is that we? That Jiva wants to enjoy, let it enjoy. You are Sakshi. Simple. Oh, but it spoils all our enjoyment. Whether you like it or not, Sakshi Bhav alone is real. The Sakshi, the consciousness alone is real. So how does it spoil any enjoyment? Sakshi will watch enjoyment of the Jiva. Sakshi will watch the disappointment of the Jiva. Sakshi will watch the enjoyment becoming sour or enjoyment becoming less. Sakshi will watch everything. Choice is whether I want to identify with the Sakshi or not. That I am that Sakshi. Or I want to say, no, I am this Jiva. That is our choice. Ideally, it is the best thing is to just be observant. It all is a play going on. Finally, that's what one will come to. And go and attend some courses on Sakshi Bhav. What will they teach? Same thing they will teach. Only thing is they will reject Atma. They will say there is nothing called Atma. Here you have the clarity about what is Atma. That's all. Otherwise, what is it? Observe the sensations in the body, observe the breathing, observe the thoughts. It's Sakshi Bhav. What else it is? So if I understand it well, then I just choose to be the Sakshi. Body can't affect me. The mind, the thoughts come, thoughts go. I am Brahman. In me, the thoughts are there. They stay, they fall. In fact, they are not even in me from that standpoint, higher standpoint. So gross body, subtle body, causal body. I am ignorant. Who knows I am ignorant? I know I am ignorant. That I is different from the Jiva. This pure I is that which illumines ignorance of the Buddhi and the knowledge of the Buddhi, both. And it is different from both. So if to say that I am not the self, I don't know the self, I am ignorant of the self, it is impossible to say I am ignorant of the self in that sense. Because that ignorance is an object of awareness of the self. How do I know I am ignorant? Because of consciousness. So then how are you ignorant of consciousness? Without light of consciousness, I cannot even know who am I. I cannot even know that I am ignorant. So that consciousness which shines in my heart is that because of which everything is known, including the concept that I am bound, I am ignorant, I am Jiva, I am dull, is all because I identify with the body, mind, intellect. Then I say I don't know the self, so I am an ignorant Jiva. But I am ignorant Jiva in that I am is consciousness. Ignorant Jiva is just the delusory superimposition, and that I am will never be affected by this superimposition of ignorant Jiva, or of happiness, or sadness, or success, or tall, dark, young, handsome, thin. None of that. That is all superimposition. So when I understand this, then how do I practice? Detach, aham. Just stay with I am. The rest is all illusion. It comes and goes. Stay with I am or stay with the bhava. I am a sakshi. This comes, this goes. As much in a day as possible. Just like the bhakta keeps on repeating the name of Bhagavan, person who is following path of Jnana Marg will keep on observing. I am the observer and I have nothing to do with the observed. If it is there, I watch. If it is not there, I watch the nothingness. That's all. So aropitam na ashraya dushakam bhavet. And no thought, no body, appearance can affect me. Not even ignorance and vasanas. That's the meaning of this first line. Because today we are allowing all this to affect us. What all happens in body shaming, arey baap re. Sometimes one really wonders what have we done in the name of progress, honestly. Our ancestors and forefathers were much more ahead of us than we are. We have to regressed. They were not doing that much of body shaming that we are today doing with all the knowledge and of science and technology and advancement. Look at the body shaming that happens. All kinds of notions and stereotypes, fat and thin and dark and bright and oh my God. It's just a body, Baba. Just leave it alone. It's one tool. How much the mind is, affected by it all. Color of the skin will affect the what you call the self-confidence of that person. Height will affect the self-confidence. One wrinkle, one pimple, gender affects. And such kind of stereotypes, size 0, waist and this and that. Arey Baba, leave it alone. It's just a tool. Keep it fit for sadhana to do seva. That's about it. What else it is required? What did our culture teach us? Ashtavakra Muni had, 8 limbs which are bent. He was looking so awkward, Baap re Baap. When he went into Janak Maharaj's court, everybody was laughing. He looked around, everybody laughing. He also started laughing. So when he started laughing, everybody became quiet. Janak Maharaj said, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Because I thought in your court there are wise people. I didn't know there are people who are cobblers sitting here. I am laughing because my delusion got broken. There are only cobblers sitting here. They are not any wise people." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "One whose attention is on the skin is a cobbler. They are only seeing the body, they are only seeing the skin." Janak Maharaj got awakened. Ashtavakra Muni became his guru. So many examples we have in our culture of people who have gone through so many challenges at the body level, but reveling in absolute bliss. Our forefathers and ancestors were definitely much better off. Whether in terms of body we say or in terms of the mind, what all our mind goes through today, with all technology available and development available, we are going through much more stress, worry, tension, anxiety than they were going through. They were leading much more quieter, peaceful lives. Much more rooted in culture they were. Much more clarity that they had about life and its purpose. Look at the suicides happening today. Young people doing all that. Why? Because we have allowed this body, mind, intellect. This ashraya dushakam bhavet. Aropitam ashraya dushakam bhavet for us. For a wise man, na aropitam ashraya dushakam bhavet. The alphabet na, that is the only difference here between the deluded and the realized one. We have allowed the superimposition to affect us. Whereas in fact it is not affecting, but we think it is affecting. So we are down. Today to remain inspired and remain happy is a big challenge. Can you believe it? Where are we stuck? Definitely we have regressed, 100%. To remain happy and inspired should be the natural way of life. How many saints have shown that with all deprivation also they were still so happy. Today with all luxury we are sitting and miserably suffering. What a regression we have gone into. I mean, regressive approach we have. Now and then we can feel inspired. For that some extra effort is required. Why? Because all attachment to body, mind, intellect and my image and my reputation and what people think about me and all that has gone into our head so much. That grounding is gone. in proper understanding, deeper values, knowledge, tradition, culture, faith, all gone. So then what will happen? Get floated, keep floating on the surface. Can't go deep. Floating on the surface, what will happen? If a fish is not, the fish which swims in the ocean, if that fish is on the surface, what will happen? The hawk or the eagle swoops down, catches the fish and goes. That's what is happening to us. Floating on the surface, any type of stress, worry, tension just comes, takes away our peace of mind, gone. We don't need excuse today. We don't need reasons today to be sad, depressed, worried, stressed, tensed, anxious. They come very naturally. See, not that some of this was not there in the ancestors, in the forefathers and grandfathers and all of them, but it is not the way we are today. That's why it is very important to be grounded and rooted properly. Especially when the glamour and glitter is much more, all the more necessary to ground. So, aropitam na ashraya dushakam bhavet. The superimposition can never affect the substratum. After becoming a student of Vedanta, if I still keep getting affected, then I have to ask myself, what is my objective? Why am I studying Vedanta? And not that one should stop studying Vedanta, but one should say, how much am I applying? And how do I start applying? That requires effort to go beyond our conditioning. When somebody asked Gurudev, and Brahmachari asked Gurudev, what do you expect from me? You know what Gurudev said? Whenever I meet you, just smile. You see, Mahatma has no expectation from us, but more importantly, he said, just smile, be happy. Don't complain. Because I've given you enough knowledge, which if you reflect upon, you will understand this whole thing is one illusion. So where is the question of complaining? Even the roles what we play, one has to play the roles and just forget it after that. What else to do? Some things happen appropriately, some things don't happen. We do our best and leave the rest. Beyond that, there is nothing more. Abide in the Sakshi, I am pure consciousness, and that alone is real. Rest of it all is mithya, it is maya. In that we are getting stuck and attached and miserable and sorrowful and scared. Not worth it at all. So now, having said that, now comes, 4 beautiful analogies are there now. Akashavallepa viduragoham adityavadbhasya vilakshanoham aharyavannitya vinischaloham ambodhivat paravivarjitoham. Very nice, 4 analogies which one can meditate upon. If one feels that, my mind is not subtle enough yet, one can use these to expand one's identification from this one small BMI, because thinking of the BMI as real is why we feel that I am getting affected, when the true I never gets affected. The illuminer never gets affected by the illumined. Whatever it may illumine, it will never get affected by that, because it is separate. Same way here. Akashavat, first analogy is Akashavat Lepa Vidura Goham. I am like the sky which is free from any contamination. Any amount of pollution can happen in the air, in the water, on the earth. Nothing will happen to Akash. It remains, changeless. It remains unaffected. Not changeless really, but it remains unaffected because it is the subtlest of all the 5 elements. And so, just like space can never get contaminated, I, the pure consciousness, I am that which will never get contaminated. No impure thought can contaminate me. No ignorance can contaminate me. No vasana can contaminate me. No body impurities can contaminate. So body impurities is gross body. The mental impurities are 6 impurities of the mind. Intellectual impurity is the ego, doership, vanity. Then impurity of vasana is there in the causal body, and the impurity of ignorance itself. I don't know. That aham, the avidya. When I don't know who am I, that ignorance is the root cause. All this will never touch consciousness. Why? Because it is like space. What is the beauty of this analogy? In space, everything exists. Without space, none of this can exist. The 5 elements, the 5 elements in that space is the subtlest. The other 4 elements exist in space. The whole creation is also in space. The creation can't exist without space. But this space doesn't get affected by whatever is inside it. Same way, Chaitanya Swarup Atma is that because of which the body, mind, intellect are functioning. They cannot function without it. But no matter what is their condition, they cannot affect the consciousness. Acha, then what is the problem? Why should I do any sadhana? The problem is I am identified. My impurities make me so identified with the BMI that I can't understand that I am consciousness which is unaffected. It's just an intellectual thought which comes and now and then when we listen to satsang. After that, again I am back to my jiva bhav and again back to the old ways of living. So the line is not to say that no need to do any sadhana. The line is to make us aware that my nature is that I am unaffected at all times. I am like space. So the more I meditate on that, I am like space. Now space doesn't have form. No taste, no color, nothing. You can't see, hear, taste, smell, touch space. Same way, I am that consciousness which cannot be seen, heard, taste, smell, touch. It doesn't have any form. It is formless, amurtaha. So who is formless? I am formless. Who is this I? Not this body, not this jiva. I is the pure consciousness. So one meditates in this way. I am space, I am all pervasive. The moment I say I, that small jiva will rise. Little ego will say, how can you be all pervasive? Not the individual. Individual is not all pervasive. The illuminer of that individuality is all pervasive. That is Chaitanya Swarup Atma. And I am that. So this constant assertion negation has to happen. Assert that I am consciousness is all pervasive. I am not this small jiva. As a jiva, I am not all pervasive. As consciousness alone, I am all pervasive. So Akashavat Lepa Vidura Goham. Then Adityavat Bhasya Vilakshanoham. Like the sun, I am the illuminer. Again, the similar point here, that the sun is the symbol of life. Sun is a symbol of energy, of dynamism. When sun rises, as though people become dynamic. Sun doesn't do anything. Sun is just illuminating. But without that sun, nothing will happen. Same way, I am that light of effulgence, the pure consciousness, in whose light all knowledge is there and all ignorance is also known. It is in whose light emotions are experienced and emotions they sustain and they fall. The senses, they perceive. But it will never be affected. Like the sun is never affected by anything happening in the world. In the same way, I am that Chaitanya Swarup Atma, nothing happens to me. I am only the illuminer. So Adityavat, because Akasha, somebody may say, oh, then I am Jada Vastu. No, the example of sun is to say, no, it is not Jada, it is Chaitanya Swarup. Because effulgence of the sun. Sun may itself by itself be not, but the example here is to indicate the Chaitanya Swarup consciousness, that illumining part of the illumining aspect of the truth. Then the third one says, Aharya, Aharyavan Nitya Vinishchaloham. So I am like the mountain, which is steady, which never shakes and moves. So with the mind, the up and down of the mind will happen, with the achievements and with the disappointments, the mind goes through ups and downs, the body goes through ups and downs, intellect goes through ups and downs. Consciousness is ever steady, mountain-like, strong, established, no movement, no fluctuation, steady. Nitya Vinishchaloham. So this, in a day, how many times I get disturbed, I should note down. Today I got disturbed 15 times. As a mind, as a jiva, I got disturbed 15 times today. Tomorrow I will try to maintain my calm, get disturbed less. Why? Because this mental steadiness and equanimity is important to realize this Atma's Nishchalatvam. If mind is disturbed, Atma's Nishchalatvam can't be experienced at all. So Atma may be Nischal, but my mind is very Chanchal. That Chanchal mind, how will it realize Nischal? So this Chanchalatvam of this mind has to quieten down. For that we do all different sadhanas. Attachment is the main cause why it becomes Chanchal. When the attachment goes in, it becomes quiet. So those sadhanas when we do, learn to keep the mind steady, not to get excited, not to get depressed, to keep it steady. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Then what to do with that steady mind? Contemplate Nishchaloham. I am like the mountain which is ever steady, pure consciousness. Nothing can affect me. Last one, Ambhodivat Paravivarjitoham. Like the ocean, I am limitless. Para means limit. Paravivarjitoham. No boundary. Boundary is there for land. Ocean has no boundary. It is land which is making the boundaries appear. Otherwise, it's all water on the earth. Between two continents, we say is one ocean. That is because we are the land boundary is there, so otherwise it is water only. Limitless. In that same way, here it is. Our nature is limitless. Why are we binding ourselves? You know how strange it is. People want to enjoy without limits. Huh? Why should I restrict myself? Why should I live in self-control? Why should I follow rules, restrictions? Very binding. Okay, we are saying already you are limitless consciousness. Why don't you live like that limitless consciousness, which will not be affected by anything? How many ever rivers keep coming into the ocean? Ocean never becomes more. It doesn't swell. And how much ever water evaporates because of heat and summer and all that, nothing happens to the ocean. You be like that now, limitless, boundless. Because if you think you are limitless and boundless, then petty little pleasures won't bother at all. Then self-control is not required. That's exactly what we are telling. No need of self-control. You are limitless, pure Brahman, absolute bliss. Realize that and stay there. No, that only I can't realize. I want to be a small little jiva who doesn't want to follow rules because the rules are a shackle. But I will be a slave of my mind. What freedom is that? That is not true freedom. No? To say that all the rules are binding me, I am getting liberated now. I have liberal thoughts. I break all the boundaries. I just do what I feel like. Full 100% bound in the mind. Whatever the mind says, this fellow will do. How then that person will realize I am limitless consciousness? If I channelize this wild mind and make it single-pointed, steady, calm, it will become strong. Then I realize what is true limitlessness. Doing whatever one feels like doesn't mean I am limitless. That is impulsiveness. And that is one big obstacle because that is an attachment to the BMI. So more we continue tomorrow. Any questions in today's session? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.